the day I say I love my boys. I know you're a grown man, but you know, there's an affection in saying my boys. As I was sitting here thinking about Spirit using me, we have a phrase here that says, there's a power greater than we are, and we can use it. And that's one of the tenets of this philosophy. There's a power greater than we are, we can use it. Matter of fact, we are using it all the time, aren't we? Via our thinking and our feeling. There comes a time when you also simultaneously realize that it's using us. Not in the sense of traditional religion that says, you know, I'm God's puppet and God has a plan for me and God's going to use me. Not in that sense, but in the sense of just making ourselves available. And that's what I hear in that song. There's a power for good in this universe that I can use, and it also uses me. And that's making it available through me. And that requires our intuition. And I love to remember that both things are true. We just open ourselves up. And that really is what today is about. This idea of the blessings of being in service. There's a man named Albert Schweitzer, who is a philosopher, he's a theologian, he's a humanitarian, he's a musician, he's a writer, all kinds of things. He said, I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I do know, the only ones among you who will be really happy are those who have sought and found how to serve. I'm going to say it again. You're taking it again. I don't know what your destiny will be. But one thing I do know, the only ones among you who will be really happy are those who will have sought and found how to serve. As we go along with the rest of this message and the rest of this day, I want you to also keep a pocket in your mind that takes the idea of being a doormat and puts that over there somewhere, or my favorite thing. Because that's not what this is about. Finding how to serve does not mean being a doormat. So please separate those two things as we go. Sometimes I look around and it seems like our world is so profit-driven and so what's in it for me driven. Doesn't it sometimes? We look out and we think everything is about how much money can I make, and change my words. Too bad for you humans, we just want to make money. You know, too bad if our crops have pesticides on them, we just want to make money. You get my idea. It just seems like we're so profit-driven. And it gets kind of disheartening. But it is also at the same time very heartwarming to look around and see all the good being done by people who are motivated not by money, but by love and caring. And mind you, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with money. I'm making a very clear distinction between profit-driven. Got me, right? You know what I'm saying? Those who are driven by what can I give? Lots of caring people. So I've been getting more and more involved in this city right here. And this city of Whittier, its local presence of people who volunteer is amazing. And it is big. As I start to travel around different circles and different clubs now, I see, oh, look at you also in that club. Oh, I see you on that nonprofit. It's heartwarming to see the people just in this city alone who give, who serve. And the only way to find that is to be involved in a local way. Otherwise, you don't see it. So it's really heartwarming and really cool to see the amount of people in every city, really. But because I'm involved here, I'm seeing that. And it just really warms my heart. People who get this message of whatever Spirit needs of me, I will do. I will go, I will give. It's amazing. Have you ever heard the psychologist's point of view that says when you're feeling down, the best thing you can do is go do something for somebody else? I'm not talking about clinical depression now, that's something different. But when you're feeling kind of blue and kind of one of those days where you're feeling sorry for yourself, I'm not the only one who has those, right? You're feeling kind of poopy. to go do something. When you can, give yourself a little time to rest, and maybe have a pity party for a day, but then, you don't want to stay there for too long. So go do something for somebody else, because it helps lift you up, yes? To do something for another person. Lifts you up, lifts you out of that funk, lifts you out of that self-centered ickiness that might have been happening. So it's a really good idea. Go help other people. So I'm going to ask you, when you've done that, or a number of things, when you've either been in a funk and you've helped somebody else, or right here at Harmony Center, or any other group that you've been involved in, what are some of the blessings that you've experienced about being in service in that way? You just tell me, throw it out there. What are some of the blessings you've experienced?
Get to know more people.
Get to know more people.
Experience love.
Experience love.
Have game night.
And what was the experience that you got from that?
Love and friendship.
Love and friendship.
Joy.
Joy. What else? Harmony. Good.
Togetherness.
Sharing. I heard something back here.
Togetherness.
Togetherness.
Satisfaction.
Satisfaction.
Laughter.
Laughter. Are you making a difference? Are you making a positive difference?
Yes.
Uh-huh, yep. What else?
Humility.
You what?
Humility.
Humility?
Yes.
Very good. Do you have a sense of purpose when you're doing it?
Yes.
There's a sense of purpose, there's a sense of making a positive difference. You're in service, right? You're making a difference. Connection. Connection with other people is a really big part of this. What about keeping the flow of giving and receiving open? Carol set that up for us, and I'm going to come back to it in a minute. But a lot of what I'm hearing is about the connection with people. I recently read a story that I want to share with you because it speaks a whole lot to this sense of connection while we're serving. So the story takes place actually in a church. And there was two friends, Sandy and Joan, I think what their names were, two friends who were looking at their church's bulletin board about things they could participate in. And there was another family whose daughter was hemophiliac, who needed blood transfusions and needed a lot of them. And this was getting very costly for the family. And so the church bulletin board said, if there's anything that you can donate, we're going to do a raffle to help raise money for this family, to help with their medical expenses. And so as Sandy and Joan are looking at the bulletin board, they're thinking, wow, we can do something. So apparently the flyer also said, go to your neighborhoods and see how you can get involved with your neighborhood. Well, one of them said, oh yeah, right, our neighbors aren't going to do that. You're not going to get any of our neighbors to come out and help each other because we're like, hi, on our way to work, or over the fence, hey, nice weather, right? One of those kind of neighborhoods where everybody just kind of greets each other while they're running off. And then there was, in the neighborhood, Mrs., I think her name was Wiskowski, that's what it was, Wiskowski. And they said, oh yeah, and Mrs. Wiskowski, she's not going to come out because she's always irritable. But one of the women said, but let's try anyway. Let's just see if we can gather, apparently they live on a small street, let's see if we can gather some of our neighbors and do something. So one of them said, hey, how about we do like a quilting bee? Because there's a couple of older women on the block who probably know how to do that. Okay, that's ageist, but it's not my story. It is. It's kind of sexist too because it's all women, but it's not. The story's going to make you laugh. Anyway, so they decided to get some of the women involved. And so a lot of the women said, oh yeah, let's do that. That would be great. Even though the ones who are always just quickly running by said, yeah. So long story short, they get together and they start working on this quilt. And all the women, if any of them had scraps of fabric, they all bring their scraps of fabric, including grumpy old Mrs. Wiskowski. She shows up and she's got the most fabric of anybody. And so they all start just getting to it. Like they all knew what to do. One was said, I can't sew, so I'll cut the squares. Another one said, oh, I'm really good at sewing. And they just get to work. And they said the conversation at first was, oh, nice weather we're having today. Or, can you believe the price of gas nowadays? That kind of small talk things is how it started out. But day after day as they were working together, they started to go up just a little bit deeper. How's your husband, how's your kids? Get a little bit deeper. And one day, Mrs. Wiskowski, the grumpy one, pulls out a piece of fabric and was just kind of touching the fabric and looking at it. And other people noticed that she got tears in her eyes. And it got the room kind of quiet, and they looked at her, and finally somebody said, "Does that fabric mean something to you?" And she said, "Yeah, I made a dress for my daughter out of this fabric." And one of the other women said, "I didn't know you had a daughter." And she says, "I don't. I did." Her daughter had passed away 4 years ago. This is the grumpy one, right? So there's a little story there. You never know what's going on behind the scenes. This was the one that seemed irritable. Maybe she was just hurting. So the other women in the room at this point are realizing, wow, this woman's having this vulnerable moment. Her daughter had passed away from leukemia. And as they started to listen to her, she started to tell her stories. She told the stories about her daughter. And some of the other neighbors pitched in and said, "Oh, I remember Carol. She was a sweet girl. She died when she was about college age. Sweet girl." And then memories started to come out. Pretty soon, Mrs. Wiskowski was talking and sharing and way more than she ever had before. And she was crying and she was laughing. And then pretty soon, the whole room had this deep conversation going on. The women went from the superficial to this deep, deep connection. Well, finally, the project comes to an end, like they all do. They take their quilt, they all go together. By this time, they all wanted to go together back in the church and say, "Here's what we made for the raffle for the other family." They bring in this beautiful quilt, and the woman says, "Wow, you all made this together?" First of all, you're a bunch of women in a room trying to lead together. Yes, and so they gave it, they were very proud of themselves. And they looked at each other and said, "This project is over, but I think we should do another one because this has kind of become our therapy." Mrs. Wiskowski, who didn't really talk much, they finally figured out she hadn't been given permission to talk much. She hadn't been encouraged. There hadn't been anybody who said, "What are you feeling?" They just thought she was grumpy. So one woman finally ended the story by saying, "We came together for a charity purpose. We came together with no intention of making any money off of this. But what we discovered in the connection and volunteering together is we all became very rich." I think that is the number one reason to be in service. And I think everybody in here who has served in some capacity, you've experienced that at least on some level. The conversations that start out as, "How's the weather?" When they're allowed to deepen, they do. And we become very rich. It's not all about the money that we get. It's about the love we get, the caring we get, the connection we get, the purpose, the making a difference, all those things that we named. We became rich. Being of service is the most beautiful gift that we can give each other. Now, I said I'd come back to the idea of giving and receiving. Carol set that up, and the whole idea of giving and receiving when we're serving, you've heard the phrase, and I say this when we talk about our money, better to give than receive. We've all heard that. And I always say it's not true when it comes to your money. It's doubly not true when it comes to being in service. If everybody is giving, then who's receiving? And vice versa. So it's better to give than receive doesn't work when we're talking about this idea of service. It's a reciprocal relationship. The blessings that we get, the blessings that we receive are reciprocal. And it must be that way. Because if you all give, somebody's got to be the one to receive. We don't want to do that, though, with the attitude of, "Oh, I'm going to be condescending, poor you, I need to give to you." Just to keep ourselves open to the flow. I give, I receive. I give, I receive. Whether it's my money, whether it's love, whether it's being in service, both sides of that must stay open. And you know how you feel when you give? You love it, right? Everybody in this room loves being of service. So why would you deny that to somebody else? We have to then sometimes say, "Yes, thank you, I'll let you help me." That's probably the number one thing people say, "Oh, I have a hard time letting other people help me." Why? You know how good it feels to give help. Let the other person feel good to give you help. It goes together. Now, I wasn't going to share this story, but I feel compelled to. This week, I was contacted by somebody who was a longtime member for many, many, many years, whose son passed away. Some of you remember Carl Lairs. Her son Anson passed away at 34 years old. So I was kind of shocked by that, and I said, of course I'll do the memorial, because that's what they were calling about. And can we use Harmony Hall afterward for our reception? Yes. Now I'm at home and I don't have the church calendar. I said yes. The memorial is from 3 to 4, planning to be here at about 4:30. On Thursday afternoon, I walk over and I get ready to set up for the memorial, and all of a sudden in my brain I go, oh, Art has an event on Friday night. Art Garcia is the guy who does all the, you've seen the setup, it's beautiful over there. And I went to my knees. I contacted Art right away and I said, what time is your event? Hoping that it was later. 4:30. Exact same time. At this point, everything was shaking and wimpy. And I said, what about Krista Marquis? Can we use Krista Marquis? He says, no, we have an event there too. So first of all, if you don't know Art Garcia, he's an amazing man. So him and his crew had an event here and there at the same time, on the same night. So they already had 2 events. And he's like, oh, I feel so bad, I want to help you. And I go, it's not yours to figure out, don't worry about it. So I come up. 10 minutes later, he calls me, he says, how about this? My wife, Nadi, had a salon up on Philadelphia, just up the street from Krista Marquis. And we've been moving out. She's closing the salon, but there's still some stuff in there, like when you're moving out of an apartment. But how about that space? He says, I'll clear the space out if you want it. I said, well, let me go over there and look. So I go look. It's probably a third, maybe a quarter of the size of our hall. And I'm looking through this window and I'm seeing all these salon chairs and I'm seeing shelves and I'm seeing cabinets and all this stuff. Like when you're moving out of an apartment and it's all in the middle of the room. And I'm looking and I'm thinking, that might work. So I called up Carla and Aaron and I said, go over and look at the space and you tell me. This whole time I'm feeling terrible about this mistake. So Aaron says, well, Aaron's the daughter. She says, you know, I think we're going to make it work. Because the other option was to go downstairs, and you know what we got down there right now? A whole bunch of high school art.
Magnificent.
Magnificent, but not a whole lot of space for people. So, long story short, Art and Aaron met and they got connected. And yes, we're going to do this. Art Garcia and his wife, Nadi, spent that evening clearing out all that stuff, which probably took a number of hours and a number of van loads. And after he cleared it all out, cleaned it, scrubbed the floor, mopped the floor, brought in tables, chairs, belly bars. You know what a belly bar is, right?
Yes.
It's a high table that you don't sit, but you stand by it, like in a lounge, stand up. He brought in that, he just made the place look beautiful. Now, mind you, it's much smaller, so he was very, very creative. I have no idea how many hours he spent, he won't tell me, but I know it took many hours to make all this happen. Did not charge her a penny. And, I was eternally grateful. The family said, let us pay him. I had no, because my agreement with you was that I wouldn't charge you for our hall. Because you're a long-time member, we're not going to charge you, so we're not going to charge you, period. I'll work that out with Art. He probably won't let me. He probably won't let me pay him. But just the heart of this man and his wife. And when I walked in there, I came to the reception after my memorial. I came to help put out the food, get things set up. And Nadi, his wife, was there. And I gave her a big hug and I said, thank you so much. I was like in tears and thank you so much. And she just gave me a hug and she just said, Sean, you guys do so much for us. And of course we want to do this for you. Wow. This beautiful, reciprocal blessing. And I and Carla and Aaron got to practice receiving. Because every bone in our bodies wanted to say, let us pay you. And we wouldn't take anything. That's the epitome of being in service. And he's not doing it with the expectation of getting something back. And he's not going, well, I had something else planned, but I guess I'll go do that. His attitude was, we just want to make it beautiful for them. Giving and receiving was practice. Being in service was practice. If you ever see Art, you just give him a big hug, because this man is amazing. And our relationship that we have here with him and all the things he does for us, it's very reciprocal. We do a lot for him too. Dia de los Muertos is going on out there. Feel like I should be marching.
She can't help it, she's dancing.
Yeah. Anyway, I just, this whole idea of being in service also requires us to receive the service. So right here at Harmony Center, as most of you know, we do a lot of things based on volunteering. A whole lot based on volunteering. Last month I honored the board, the practitioners, and the volunteer coordinators. So before I honor this year's, can we put the PowerPoint? I found a comic strip.
Oh, sounds like great.
Isn't that one? Oh God, tell me what to do. Volunteer. Okay, so that's me over there. So reminding you how much we do need all of you. Today we're going to honor the welcome team, the visitors team, and the hospitality team. And I know they're not all here, but if we can have this slide with their names on it, and if I can have the welcome team come on up. So Ana Cacao, Lupe Macias, Bill Carlson, Aline Falvey, Ryan Delgado, Cynthia Yvette, Dwayne Hall, Irene Guerrero, Bob Gordon, Patty Daly, Michael Falvey, and many more. If you will all run up, if you're here, and stand right over here. Come here, please come on up. Don't be shy. Just stand right here. Come on down, come on up. Come on over. These are the people who greet you at the front door, hand you your program, and collect the love offering when we get to that section of the service. These are the people who've been told that you need to smile, and you need to greet, and you need to hug, and you need to love. This is our welcome team. Give them a hand. You don't get to do a straight line, you need to scoot up. Okay? Because the stage is going to get nice and full. Now, working in tandem with this team is the visitors team. The visitors team hands out brochures to the new people who walk through the door, and often they're working in tandem with the welcome team to make sure they know who the new people are. So this team is Carol Barber, Lilia Carrion, Ramiro Ortuno, Denise Hines, Sue Bell, Becky Moore, and Annalisa Rodriguez. If you would please come and stand over here. This is the visitors team. All right, it's fun to see how people maneuver around. Wonderful. And you know what? Some people on this team have used this team as a breakthrough. There's some people who I won't mention on this team who are quite the introvert and who are quite shy, who use this as an opportunity to say, I'm stepping out. No, that would not be you, but she knows who she is. All right, wonderful. Then, so I already said what they did. They're the ones who interface with new people who show up. Okay, so kind of squished together right there. And then also today, I want to recognize the hospitality team. This is the team who make your coffee, bring your goodies, put out your goodies, throw away your trash, and clean up after you. They've got quite a bit on their shoulders. So if I can have, let's have right here, down low, Annalisa Rodriguez, Karen Cole, Denise Hines, Ramiro Ortuno, Lupe Macias, Nancy Estrada, John Huber, Janet Huber, Pat Sanchez, and Irene Guerrero. If you will come over here. So, are you on that team too? Then come on over. Sometimes people are on teams I maybe don't even realize. Get in the center, you this group, get in the center, please. Get in the center. Get in the center. Move that way. Ramiro, go to your right. That way. That way. That way. There we go. All right. Now, some aren't up here, obviously, but a whole lot of people on this team are here today. So let's smile. You got it?
Yeah, I want to take the whole group though.
Okay, so why don't you guys squeeze in close to me and squeeze in close, right? This is about half the church right now. Can you get us?
Let me do one more. My Zoom is going crazy. Okay, one more. One, two.
And if you will all just say to all these folks, thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Wonderful. And in their honor, we have some pie and cake today. Chocolate cake and pumpkin pie. What it says is those are 3 really big apartments. It does say that. All right, and I just want to finish with this quote, and then I'll do the prayer, obviously, but the quote by Winston Churchill. He says, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life for what we give." Let's close our eyes. As I close my eyes, I center myself deeply into that truth of all life that says there is only one thing. The creativity of life, the love of life, the intelligence of life, the energy of life. There's only one thing. It cannot be a house divided. That one thing I call the source, or I call the spirit. Some people like to call it God. Some people just like to call it the universal presence. It really doesn't matter. That one energy is life itself. And that life itself is right here. In this room, in this sanctuary, in these hearts, in these minds, in these people. Right here, every single one of us, beautiful expressions of the divine. Each of us giving what is ours to give. There is a power greater than we are, and it can use us as we use it. We give and receive with that power. We allow the Spirit to move through us, giving through us. And we also make use of that one Spirit, choosing, directing our lives, and giving to others. I'm so grateful for the love in this place. I'm so grateful for all of the different incarnations here at Harmony Center. Sometimes big and overflowing, sometimes small and quiet and powerful. But every single one of it divinely guided. I'm grateful for all the beloveds who volunteer, give up their time, their service, their talent. I'm grateful for all of us who receive from these volunteers. It is truly a reciprocal relationship. And so we take in the blessings that are ours to take, and we give out those blessings that are ours to give. I allow myself to feel grateful for every bit of it, knowing that everything is truly in divine right order right here at Harmony Center. All is truly well. So I just release this word into the law that agrees with me. It says, yes, all is truly well. I let go and I let God. And so it is.
And so it is.